Hi, it's Tim Clark, End Times Matrix News, and we are privileged today to have Anthony Patch back with us today. Today is the 26th of March, and we're going to be really given a treat today because we have a really interesting slideshow presentation for the folks who are out there that will really want to see this. This is going to be CERN related and ancient civilization related, but I think this might actually what would I say? Give you an aha moment, as it is, of some really interesting research. So we have Chris with End Times Matrix News. She's been doing a lot of great research on this topic, and this is her baby that she's rolling out here, and that's going to be great. And then, of course, we've got Anthony Patch. Anthony is going to be having a big to do on this weekend. You want to go ahead and just promote the engagement that you're having this weekend, Anthony, right up front?
Thanks. It's great being back together with you guys. We're looking at Saturday the 28th in Portland at the Hilton Hotel from 6 to 9 p.m. I've been invited by radio talk show host Clyde Lewis of Ground Zero Radio. You can go to Ground Zero to his website for details and for registration. But we are going to be talking principally about CERN and all of the interrelated topics therein. We hope to have a huge crowd turn out for this. Clyde has been promoting this and has been gracious enough to have me on the air. I was on for 4 hours with Clyde on his national program. I was on a couple of weeks ago as an introductory, and we decided that it was important that we have a gathering of people so that we could have an exchange of questions and ideas regarding CERN and the dangers that it poses to our existence here on the planet, much like what we've been talking about here in our End Times Matrix News get-togethers. So again, that's if you happen to be available in Portland on Saturday at 28, 6 to 9 at the Hilton Hotel. We are planning on providing this after the event online for people to listen to. We will not have a video presentation online, but audio only, and that'll be through Clyde's Ground Zero Radio website, and he broadcasts to over 200 stations across the nation. He's number 2 to coast, and we hope to do something about that. Anyway, that's my little plug. Thanks.
That's awesome. So we're going to just get right into it with Chris's presentation. I think this will spur all kinds of questions. And so we're going to get ready to highlight her box here as she goes into that. So we'll highlight her presentation.
All right. So we're going to start off discussing the crash that just happened recently and kind of tie in some information. We have an official prosecutor from France that he was on CNN, and he talked about how it was a deliberate attempt to destroy the aircraft. There was evidence from the voice recorder, and it was about the pilot in the cockpit. I think one of them was locked out of the cockpit, but we want to discuss how CERN might be connected to this and some electromagnetic energy, the possibility of this. Here's a map of Geneva where CERN is, and this is like 199 miles from where the crash was. And here you see, here's Angela Merkel, the one that's always showing the hex sign on her hand. She's also on the front of the 2015 Economic magazine that has a lot of occultist symbolism there. There was a person, if you check out Dabu 77's video, there was a person on board that worked at the Pentagon on mapping, and all of her pictures are blotted out, and no one can find any pictures of her. So I just wanted to point that out in case you want to check that out. And so one of the questions that we have today is, did an electromagnetic field around CERN take down this flight? Here's some pictures of CERN showing the rings, and of the 666, and we'll get into this 666 symbolism in carbon-7 and how that ties in to CERN and the Giza pyramid with the electromagnetic energy. This is just another symbol of CERN at the MTV Awards. I've showed this before, but this 666, it's all over in the occult symbolism everywhere. In 2013, the UN General Assembly proclaimed in 2015 is the year of light. And so this could be a possible, in September, they could be referring to 2015 as a possible opening the portal. And how does that tie in with the Higgs boson and the gluons and the muons and this particle accelerator of CERN that's kind of a mimic of the pyramid with the capstone being the energy of the sun representing the universe and the 7 chakras. It's like a camera, like an oculus, and we'll go into more of that. So today we'll be talking about the 7 angels and how they connect to all of this as well, like the fallen angels. The Ogdoad is the 8, so keep in mind that they do worship the 8 because Osiris is, he represents Satan, and he is the resurrected to the underground. And so with the Ogdoad and the Ennead after the flood, they represent the 8, but they're the 7 fallen angels. Here's some of the particles shown as a Metatron cube, and we're going to be discussing the Metatron cube. Here's another way of looking at it with the energy from the tuning around the world. And so we're going to be discussing 666 and 661, which is carbon-7, and the 6 neutrons and protons and electrons that are part of us as in the flesh. Every barcode in the world, in the computer world, is coded with 666. So the computer in itself is coded with 666. Computer means 666 in numerology, and www means 666. And the Shin letter is 666, so just keep that in mind. So here it is again. I just said that, but here's another representation of the pyramid with the 6 here. I believe these are the electrons, and 1, instead of 6 neutrons, it represents 1 neutron, and this is representative of the carbon-7, 6, 7 in the pyramid, and the middle one represents a time dimension, which I do believe is connected to the gluons, which represents the two-faced Janet's God that is fused together as one, as the dualism. So here's another picture of Metatron's cube with the, this is the same as the Kabbalah tree, but it's just shaped differently with the pentagon in the middle. Here's another example of the gluon plasma. Here's another, Anthony was telling me about the glue. Here, they can actually transfer, they can reverse here. I believe they can change color, so they can swap out once they're connected together like this from this gluon here. And here's an example of what it looks like with the light in the middle. So here's what carbon-7 is. It's a little different from the 666 that we have in our flesh. This is 6 electrons, 6 protons, and 1 neutron that represents the sun in the middle. It represents the spark and the 7 and the Zayin letter that we've discussed in our previous shows. Here's a Bible verse in Acts 7:43. It says, "Yeah, ye took up the tabernacle of Moloch and the star of your god Remphan, figures which ye made to worship them, and I will carry you away beyond Babylon." And this is a satanic symbol. I know a lot of people understand this to be the Star of David, but If you really read your Bible and study in depthly, you will realize that this is the star of Ranfin, which is Saturn, and it's a very occultic symbol. So it's also Metatron's cube, and so this also represents Metatron's cube. If you stylize it in a different way, and you take out two, which is one of them is hell, represents the 3 stars of the Orion belt. So here is, I can't get too much into this because we don't have a lot of time, but if you want to copy this, Tim and I are going to do an in-depth show furthering a lot of this information on the occult side and how Janus plays into this. But this is the magic square of the sun. And so we know in the zodiac there is supposed to be 12 constellations, which there's actually 13 if you count Ophiuchus. But these are the 4. These 4 are below, and they represent 4 above, which equal to 8. So when you add 3 of the triad to each deity, there's 3, 6, 9, 12. And they represent Mithra as well. Here's another depiction of the 4 below, or the above that match the 4 below. It's another Metatron's cube that represent the 661, which is the carbon 7. This is Janus, and this is 7, including the sun. Okay, so 7 rays, which is 7 rays of energy from the planets through the sun. This is Ra, and these are 5 elements, which are of the human body, which that's what Satan wants, is he wants to be a human. He wants to be in the image of God. And so that's how the Antichrist will be, I believe, when that portal opens. This was a representation of a video that I had with this being the 2 faces of Janus. They are in the center of the pyramid, and there's a dimension in the middle. And so this represents part of that gluon factor in CERN. The only way they could do these things that they're wanting to do is through this particle accelerator that we'll get more into with Anthony. But this is another circle of the, showing the earth, fire, water, air, and the Shin fire being in the center. This is on the telephone of the Jews wear this on their head, and this is the Vav Vav Vav, which is 666 also. And so I believe that this is the one they are having reserved for the world to come. I believe this represents carbon 7 here with the 7 chakras. There's 7 serpent illuminations, 7 chakras, 7 fallen angels. This is a upside down cross with a 7 at the launch pad 39 for one of the rocket launches. This represents Mercury with the Saturn crescent, the number 7, and the upside down cross. Here's a picture of Janus in the primordial egg, representing the 8, which is the Ogdode, and these are the representing the 7 planets. And here's time and space in their hand, showing what the Freemasons symbol is. This is Mithra, which represents the same thing with the keys in his hand. And this is Mithra being born from a primordial egg from a rock. That's the story of Mithricism, and it's a worship of Jupiter. Here's another example of the 12. There's 6 female and 6 male. They're all one deity, but they separate into different planets as male and female, as 2. So Mithra is one deity broken into 12 in the zodiac, and that's just part of the magic square of the sun. Here's they're just showing the symbolism of the 666. So I wanted to point out, if CERN is 666, if CERN is a portal and a gateway that represents the gluon factor in the 666, is it possible that we were talking about the Zayin letter and the 7, and we talked about Ptah with him being the resurrection of Saturn as Jupiter, and the symbolism of this Metatron type cube here. The angel Samuel, which represents the 4 sides of the earth, the 4 faces, which is the ox, the lion, the eagle, and the man. He represents this letter. This is the world to come, and it's shaped like an axe. It's also representative of a letter H in a different language, which represents this DNA. And here's another picture of the Ogdo. They merged with the Ennead, which is the 9. Anyone can look up that story of Osiris. His phallus is all over the world. It's at the Vatican. All the obelisk represents the phallus of Osiris, and that's who they want to resurrect. This is the 8-pointed star this is the United Nations headquarters in Denmark. They built a new building. I know they have one in New York, but this is their building in Denmark. The Temple of the Mount is also 8-sided. These T's in the tall cross, they represent 8 because there's 4 above and 4 below. And when you make this 4 into the triangle, this becomes 8. So it's kind of like an occultist hidden symbolism. But here's the Vatican with the obelisk here with the star there also, with the 8-pointed star. And so Anthony, we talked last time with him about the iron, and the iron has the ability of sustaining a magnetic field around it. Carbon-7 has the uncanny ability to carry hyperdimensional fields, such as fields of thought around it. I just find that really interesting because we've talked about the iron, the phosphorus that is like Venus, the iron that is like Mars. And we've talked about these things before, and we might get into that with our discussion here. But this is another symbolism of the 4 corners. This is Yahweh's name, Adonai. Adonai is the same as Tammuz. Their name, you can look it up, the translations of those things. But this is the representation of Samael, also the 4 corners of the earth. And we've got into what this name means as female and male, the yoni and the phallus, and how that's worshipped with the occultists. And so this is another symbol of the pyramid, and there's a lot of Mercury being seen in the middle. Very interesting, but Tim and I will have to do another show on all of that. Here's another representation of the star with the planets and the snake eating its tail. This represents the universe. And so the pyramids, from what I've understanding, open a Stargate portal. I think, in my opinion, that CERN represents a pyramid. And I know the pyramids carry so much energy that you could give us free energy for a lifetime. Some of the people that have studied these things, I've read that they said it's kind of like a direct energy weapon that can shoot beams up into the sky. When it had the capstone is missing. They are all removed off of the pyramids that have this energy, and the architects that have studied this all their lives, they're shaped like a spiral inside. Architecturally, they represent the universe inside, and they have energy inside of them, and the top is like an oculus, like the camera. And here's the pyramids. This one looks taller because it's on higher ground, but Khufu's pyramid's really bigger. This is the Giza pyramid, and so these represent the belt of Orion and the brain. And so it's just interesting that Janus's brain, the dualism of the split deity and the one deity. One's male and female, one's male, and then they're merged together, and they represent the fire, Shin letter, of the center. And funny, because here's CERN's video. They did this wild video here with the dance that they did, and this represents I believe it represents the God particle, and they want to merge this duality. Here's Janus with the duality, and this is the eagle, the two-headed eagle, which represents Janus and Ptah and the dualism. And this is set in Horus when they were one deity. They represent the Y, 1, 2, 3, the dualism. And here's the queen and king. This is their alchemy symbols above their thrones. This is her diamond, which is the star of Africa. It's the biggest diamond in the world. So since we're going to talk about a little bit about carbon 7, I wanted to show her giant diamond there. But so I think I've covered everything here. I skipped around a little bit, but I've covered everything on that and the symbolism there. So
let me jump in then.
Okay.
Go back, if you would, to your picture showing the UN symbol and the 8 sectors of the UN symbol. The actual symbol of the UN itself.
You mean one with the 33 in it?
No, it had another symbol next to it.
This one?
Also 8. Yeah, there you go. Okay, the zodiac. Very interesting. Jumps off the page at me because, you know, my whole thing is CERN. I'm greatly indebted to you for all of this background in the ancients because it totally fits into the physics. My point in this graphic is the main ring at the Large Hadron Collider is comprised of 8 separate sectors. So I just want to throw that out, that it fits in with all of the other symbolism. And mechanically and spiritually, it has significance in the fact that they've chosen 8 sectors or 8 portions comprising of this main ring. So from a physics standpoint, it makes sense that it would fit with the spiritual as well, because as we said in the last show, you cannot distinguish between the two, or I should say you can't separate the two. They both are part of our universe. They're part of our existence. So anyway, wanted to throw that out.
Yeah, I think that there's a mention of some doctors that say there's something connection with 8 cells that are never changed in our body. That's next to our, I can't remember exactly, but something about 8 cells in our body. I have to look more into that, but it's interesting because there's a lot of significance with, you know, the 8 and the 8 deities and how they fit into all of this with the Ogdoad and Mithra.
Yeah, I mean, I think the point that you're making here is that we really have to appreciate the fact that there's an awful lot of ancient history, studies, practices, rituals, symbolism that we have, as a modern society, been shielded from. We've been, some people want to call it dumbed down. I don't like that, but we are not privy to this information because it's not part of our school system, it's not part of our church systems, and therefore we've lost touch with what you are bringing up. And I think it's fascinating that you've brought up what really is the driving force behind what is going on at CERN. I've had many people ask me on the radio, emails, what is driving CERN? Why are they doing this? If it's so dangerous, why are they doing this? And I think you're on the path here of explaining their intrinsic motivation. What motivates them as a human being to pursue something that on the surface appears to be self-destructive. And it's just trying to reach for and ascend to another level. And I know you're going to go into the carbon-7 in a moment, and I really want you to do that because that is a critical key for people to focus in on. So let me back off and let you have the floor.
Oh, that's okay. Well, just in my opinion, what I was saying before, from what I understand, is that, you know, the CERN symbolism is the 666. I mean, this is their symbol, you know, and so when we're looking at carbon-7, this has to do with the other dimension that they're trying to open with this portal, because they want to be their own god. When you're you know, with this meditation and the 7 chakras and ascension into other dimensions, which this is not what our God intended, you know, through Jesus Christ. You know, Jesus never taught to do this. He never said to chant. He always said, you know, don't worship the sun and the moon and the stars. You know, the Bible talks about the star of Remphan, which is Saturn, and so I think that their goal is to bring this spark. And I don't really understand a whole lot of how the Higgs boson works into this, but I know that they were accelerating the CERN machine, and so this is like a building up of them building up the strangelets and everything. So I think that they understand from an occultic point of view, because the occults, they have an oral thing, an oral Torah. They have an oral thing that they do that they never write it down. So these things are based upon just of knowledge of certain bloodlines and certain people. So we are not going to know everything. There's so much hidden from us that we don't know, but there are people that are in the occults. We have time on our side. We have technology, and they have to use these things, which a lot of these things will go against them, because there's a lot of people in the occult that have come out that have talked about these things and that we're aware of, just like some of the satanic people that have gotten out of cults. They've been able to have out-of-body experiences and go around, and they do this by blood. You know, they do a lot of blood sacrificing. So I'm sure that there is some type of blood sacrifices that go along with these things in order to open up the portals and all the pyramids that are on certain ley lines. That's why there are incidences that have happened on 666th Street or at certain schools, or that's to my understanding of how they do things with energy and blood and sacrifice, so, you know, sacrifices that they did. And so whenever 9/11 happened, there's some videos where some cars were warped. That just doesn't happen. I mean, I know that there was explosions and everything like that, but cars all the way down the street were warped and disfigured. And there was a big cube on a boat that was out there during that time, and there's pictures of that. So I actually have a picture of, this is just one little picture.
Let me interrupt. Did you say a large cube on a boat?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
On a barge. Yeah, it was on a barge.
Was this a large black cube?
Yep.
Do you happen to know the dimensions of it? Was it cubical or was it rectangular?
It was cubical.
It was huge.
About, can you give me a rough estimate of the size?
I don't know. I'm thinking probably like a size of of a room, of a
I'm trying
regular
to think of,
room.
I'm trying to think of storage containers on a barge that would be
Okay.
combined into a cube that was rather large, several of them. But it wasn't storage containers. It was that
Right.
size, and it's in the background, and people have always wondered what it was. And of
Okay.
course, we got into our Saturn cube technology stuff, and then
Yeah.
sound waves, and then this is what you're addressing.
When you get a chance, send me that by email, a picture of that. The reason that
Okay.
that piques my interest is, I'll just quickly go through this. The adiabatic quantum computer is housed in a cube. It's a shielded cube that shields it from all electromagnetic interference from the outside. Number two, do you guys recall that there's a monolithic piece of magnetic material? It's not a cube, but it's a rectangle that is in the UN, and they actually have it set up in a ceremonial room, much like a
Yeah.
chapel. Okay, so we have that. The other issue is, I don't know if you recall, but going back just a couple of years, in San Francisco and in the Bay, and also on the East Coast, I think it was Connecticut, they had two what were called Google barges.
Yep.
Okay, and these had shipping containers on them that were all welded together. This is in my book, 2048 Diamonds in the Rough. I used the Google barges in that. But the point is, if you've got a barge, you've got a cube, you've got the Google barges, there's maybe some crossover there. But the issue that I'm driving at here is that probably, in my estimation, from a physics standpoint, that cube offshore, and I don't know anything about it, I'm making conjecture here, that was magnetic. That it was a monolithic piece of magnetic material that would connect physically with the Brookhaven lab in New York, the relativistic heavy ion collider, that is rumored, conjecture, speculation at this point that it may have produced a directed energy beam at the base of the Twin Towers, causing the explosions to take place. And you mentioned the warping of the vehicles. That's a directed energy weapon effect. So I really want to go down the rabbit hole here on this cube offshore, because it sounds to me like it's tied to the collider at Brookhaven.
Yeah, and also of interest was all the witnesses, of course, that there were sitting there watching the show of 9/11 to witness this thing happen, that were, of course, reported about, that had Mossad relations or whatever it was. But there was definitely some intelligence people sitting there watching this event. And if we have that cube, Brookhaven, and a directed energy weapon being observed by the intelligence community, that to me is a storyline.
Big time. That's really good stuff you guys have. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, it just, 9/11 represents, the 9/11 gate, and I think they do these things based upon the alignments that are going on in the planets, in the, cosmos, and all of the information that they know that we don't necessarily know on what they're trying to accomplish behind the scenes, what these cults are trying to do at certain times. It's like a building up of things. It's like they're, just like with all the research and technology they did underground, and all that ties into CERN, with the Looking Glass, and all the Dulce and Area 51, all those projects, with what they were trying to do, and the remote viewing. And so all of those things are documented, through the military, and a lot of those things are released, and people can read that information. So I just think that, CERN is we don't know exactly what, if there's possibly portals that are open already around the world. They're just not like a dimension. And but CERN is quite different. It's a very powerful collider that is wanting to open up a portal. In their own words, they're looking for a parallel universe. And so that's where Janice fits in, that Tim and I were working on for another show. But the duality, one face being in one dimension and one being in the other. It's like a duality that they want to fuse these two dimensions together and to have their golden age with Saturn was the ruler of the golden age and before the flood. And so they want this golden age again. This is what they want. And they want to be able to ascend into and have this dimension. That's what they want, to be their own God.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know how that's going to work with, I can't envision how that would work as far as, you know, the mark of the beast, and how is that going to work for the rest of the world? Do you have to plug into this supercomputer in order to be part of this ascension? And people that don't believe in the Lord, that want to be part of these things, they'll flock to it, you know. And we've talked before about possibly the grid going down and them having an excuse that, you know, the computers, we can't get on the computers anymore. If you want to be part of this computer system that we have in place, then you're going to have to take this biometric mark and have this ID. That's a possibility. So we're just so close to what they're doing. I mean, in September, they're going to really, this is going to be a very powerful time when they're going to have this, and so it's going to be interesting that month for sure.
Definitely. I'm really grateful for you bringing to my attention Carbon-7, and I watched the video that you sent to me this morning and wrote down, transcribed what they were talking about. I found it so fascinating. Please put a link to that with this video, if you would, for others to view that video so they have the background. But very quickly, just to go over that, what really keys in on me is this is the grand deception. Again, what is the motivating factor? What is driving 10,000 scientists at CERN to all be doing the same thing, the agreed-upon agenda, and what has brought all of these people to say, yeah, let's do this? You're looking at the grand deception of immortality. The original lie from Satan in the Garden of Eden was, you will become gods. We've talked about that before. But I'm reiterating that because that's the core, pardon the pun with the apple, but that's the core of what is motivating and spurring these people to move forward with such dangerous technology, is they truly believe in the golden age. They believe that when they open the portal, they will be able to create a new plane of existence, or enter a new plane of existence, or bring in to our plane of existence a new dimension, a new plane of existence here. Or the other way around, they may view the fact that opening the portal allows them to be transported into a new plane of existence, into a new realm of the golden age, to remove themselves from this planet and go to maybe another Earth in another dimension, a parallel world that may in fact be what you would consider to be Earth, but exists in another plane of existence, another dimension. I'm beginning to suspect, believe that they are going to be removed from this dimension and moved through the portal into another. I have been under the perhaps misunderstanding or misconception that they were trying to bring entities into this world. Now that may be true. It may be a two-step process. They may be bringing entities into this world as step one through the portal, Step two is then they move with these entities back through the portal to this other dimension where it is the golden age, and they ascend into this other golden age through the portal. I've maintained that at 14 TeV, tera electron volts, that will establish a fixed portal. If you have a fixed portal in, say, September, then you have the ability to move through it in both directions. The carbon-7 information you sent to me today, I think, demonstrates that they believe they're going to escape the problems of the Earth that they're helping to create with strangelets, et cetera, Fukushima, whatever. They're going to leave this polluted and damaged world and go into another world that is their golden age world. And I'll stop there because that's a lot to digest.
Yes, I've come to almost a similar conjecture that that it is about an escape plan. This is about the judgment of God is coming. If we avoid being here when He gets here, when Jesus opens up, or the Armageddon is where is kind of the last stand, as they would call it in the movies, a movie called Last Stand. And so I'm just tying some of the movies here. The 300 feet down thing I've been thinking about with CERN. Why is it 300 down? Why do we have movies called 300 and 300 Rise of an Empire? Is it to overlap into that 300 down on the Saturn connection to have that established portal 300 inside of that sphere, 300 inside of this sphere, and then you have a bridge established, kind of like docking, kind of like a docking portal to two. This is where we got into talking Janus and all this stuff. Janus is the bridge. Janus bridges two things. And so...
Let me interrupt just for a second. Can you explain a little bit more about 300 as it relates to Saturn? Are you talking about 300 rings or 300 dimension?
I'm not, as it pertains to Saturn, I would look for others to add to that. I'm looking at the concept of just like when we were talking fire in the middle, the Higgs boson, the pyramids where they overlap, the fields overlap into that central area. That is what I'm looking at, is where the overlap zone. It's kind of like they had to go into the Earth in order to establish an overlap into the Saturn ring. It's the overlap zone of like we see in the middle of the pyramid concept, where we have the overlap right in the middle, where Chris calls it the fire in the middle. And so to me, that's the bridging. It's kind of like an overlap is the bridging mechanism with the two fields of some sort. That's my guess at this point. But that's why 300 down. This is for the people with the pop culture. That movie is about Sparta. That movie is about the history of supposedly connecting to their, this age of their age without God. Basically, they were their own gods, kind of. And it also connects to the history with the tribe of Dan. It also connects with the serpent, and it also connects with the last movie ended very strangely, and nobody could explain why, but it was basically Isis. Isis was taking revenge for her Osiris and waging war to put them back together was the ending of that show, because it made no sense otherwise to anybody else out there. But it looked like that was kind of a dedication to Isis, going on the warpath, and then we got ISIS all over the place. But I think that's what we're looking at: is escape plan, and Armageddon is a last stand if they can't get out.
Sounds like a reverse rapture.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. That's what it is. If they can't if they can't bridge their way into Tomorrowland, which is these raves and stuff that they're telling Tomorrowland is where they want to go, where they just the movie culture, Titan AE, the Titan AE, the Genesis device starting their own creation. They want to escape and create.
Let's take two things. The movie Interstellar, Saturn figured into that. The golden age that they created on Saturn as their off-planet colony in that movie. Do you think that perhaps, and I'm throwing this out, that Saturn is where they hope to travel to, rather than extracting the spirits, as I've been talking about, from Saturn and bringing those to Earth? Again, maybe it's a two-step process. They bring the spirits from Saturn. The spirits are the ascended masters. They are the benevolent aliens or benevolent forefathers that they keep speaking of, if you want to call them the Greys or the aliens. There's been this whole hypothesis that there are benevolent beings that have been watching over us. This was reflected in the Carbon-7 video even that we saw, that somehow in full disclosure of aliens, it'll be shown that the benevolent ancestors have been watching over us, they've returned, they're going to take care of us. So perhaps that's a description of the spirits coming from being released and traveling through this plasma conduit that I've talked about, established between Saturn and Earth, that they come to Earth and are disclosed and revealed as our benevolent ancestors. And then there's the ascension from Earth back to Saturn with them through this dimensional portal or plasma conduit, whatever you want to call it. So I just throw that out for us to discuss a little bit.
I think it's entirely likely what you're talking about, because the whole interstellar mindset was, well, we have to go out there and we have to establish this bridge because otherwise this planet's going to die. And their point was that the planet is being destroyed. They're destroying the planet. They're burning the ships. They're burning the Mayflower. You know, they came. The Mayflower's there, okay, whatever you want to say, Ponce de Leon, burn the ships, we're marching inland. That's what they're doing, you know. So they're devastating the environment to where there's no going back, you know, and they have to move forward. Interstellar is that storyline. Interstellar is, well, we either succeed or die in the process.
What do you think, Chris, from the ancient standpoint? How does that work in?
Well, I got a couple of things, but one thing I wanted to say was that I just wanted to tell everybody that there are two Metatrons, and there are two Ananchas, and there are two Lamechas, so there's a mirror effect from the very beginning. So there's two of all of them. So I just wanted to point that out. And then the other thing that I wanted to say was that the Bible does say that the abyss is going to open, which I do believe is in the cosmos and under the ground. They're connected to each other in the celestial realms, possibly Saturn. But I wanted to say that the Bible says that men's hearts are going to fail. And I do believe that it is going to be like in the days of Noah, and the Titans are going to be released from the pit and to the earth, even though there might be some type of escape plan or whatever. But isn't it, to our understanding, according to the Bible, that the Antichrist is going to sit on the throne, that he is going to claim to be God of the earth? But at that time, there is a possibility that if they open a portal, or at that time when the abyss is open and the Antichrist is here, maybe there is going to be some type of rapture, because there is going to be a different frequency on Earth during that time. So those are my thoughts on it.
No, I agree with you. I mean, it makes total sense that you have, as above, so below, you have two pits. You have Saturn and you have the bottomless pit here on Earth. So,
well, the abyss and the netherworld are are two separate places. There's different levels, from what I understand, in their occultist teachings, that they have 7 gates, that every planet has a gate. So there's a gate, and then, Janus is the gatekeeper too. So we know Thoth was the god of the roadways and the Mercury, the messenger, but Janus he has 2 faces, and he is the gatekeeper. He's the one with a key, and he's the gatekeeper. Now he has a key, and Sybil, which is actually Rhea, which is Saturn's female counterpart, she has a key too, and she represents the Milky Way too.
Amazing. Did you know that there is a financial fund known as the Janus Fund, and they use the 2-face as its emblem,
Yes.
as its corporate logo?
There's a lot more to Janus than we've ever thought about when Chris and I got into this, and I think that's why we were going to do a whole separate show on that kind of stuff, because Janus is much bigger as far to being part of gates and the keeper of gates and the bridger of things, and also the 13th pillar, the Hegelian dialectic. There's a lot tied into Janus that we wanted to expand on with more images for that. CERN definitely is connected with Janus. Janus is definitely connected with CERN. And the fire in the middle stuff that we were talking with the Higgs boson and CERN, that was fabulous. That little diagram of that triangle that you had with the little hexagon in the middle.
Can you put that up again?
Yeah, we'll highlight for you, Chris. We'll highlight your box, and why don't you put up the Higgs boson and the triangle, and let's talk about the fire in the middle, pyramid, and CERN real quick, what that means.
Okay. I'm trying to get the thing. It won't let me pull it up.
Oh, okay. Well, you tell us when you're ready. But I thought that was this ancient civilization technology that has basically been reverse engineered, or here she goes. Let's go ahead and click on that middle box with Chris. Let's go to that. Let's get that triangle with the Higgs boson, because that's just fabulous.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Let's see.
Okay. From a public relations standpoint, the Higgs boson, I think, has been a smokescreen of sorts, in the sense that they had to justify to the world the expenditures that they made for this Large Hadron Collider. So they had to have a success. They had a number of failures that were very public failures. And so they had to come up with something. Now, whether they've actually found the God particle or not is debatable. But let's assume that they have, and we'll go forward with your graphic. Go ahead.
This is your Janus graphic, right? And the Higgs boson's in the bottom triangle?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And there's Anthony's 600-cell tetrahedron up top.
You got it. You got it.
That's a really magnificent slide there. I mean, there's so much to this that it's like, it's really mind-boggling. Do we have anything with the pyramid with the fire in the middle shot? You got that also? Because I want to look at the Higgs right there in the bottom. That bottom symbol, that middle point, is supposed to be the Higgs. That is at the center of this triangle or pyramid or pyramid. And I wonder, we had a shot of that the other day we were looking at with the pyramid.
Yeah. Let me ask a question. When we look at the left and right multicolored objects, the front and back, those are pictures of what? I mean, they're paintings.
The brain. The brain.
So are these MRI images of the brain?
I'm not really sure if if they're just they're
Like
just
an
like a some
artificial
type of,
emission.
yeah, just like a dimensional type thing. This is the front lobe, and this is the back. So I had another picture that shows the twin deities. One of them has
Right.
a split. He has a split brain, so he's like
Right.
half and half, and then the one is one deity. So one is male and female, and the other one's male, and they're a triple deity, and they represent the middle of the pyramid.
Okay, I got you.
Well, it's interesting with the right left hemisphere of the brain, the differences in the two brains and what they do, the two halves, and here we're
This
dealing with this Janus type thing.
Here's a picture of a
There it is.
pyramid. Here, it's see the fire in the middle.
That's the fire in the middle, right?
Yeah.
I wish we had the overlap of the corners overlapping with that center and the top overlapping with that center. Because it's that overlap that I think is connected to the 300, the depth. Because it's kind of like looping two loops across each other, so you have a circle and I forget what, like the tetrahedron, but where were those? I thought we had one of those where we saw the overlapping inside the pyramid. Because I think that's the dimensional connection for the bridge that we're talking about with Saturn, and why they go down. It's kind of as above, so below. Why go down to go up? You know, something like that. You know, it's one of those weird things.
Don't the magnetic ley lines intersect within the center of the pyramid?
I would imagine. I know that many pyramids are built on the ley lines. I'm not sure about the center of the. I would imagine it has to be connected, because why else build all the pyramids on ley lines?
Right.
Well,
And
they also
ley lines are connected to water underneath. Also, that's the water. The aquifer thing was also connected with a lot of this ancient moving large stones and stuff that we don't know how they did it, but.
Yeah, I think they did it with a frequency, but the pyramid also is like a big speaker, and it faces the ground. And so they're also connected, like the Giza pyramid is connected to Mount Sinai, and so the ley line there. And so these pyramids are connected to each other all over. There's also crystal pyramids underneath the ocean, and I think that's where the Bermuda Triangle is.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of pyramids. There's some under the ocean, and there's one in Antarctica. There's pyramids in the United States. They're all over the world.
Yeah, I started thinking when I looked at the globe, when I looked at the Earth, and thinking of Anthony's 600-cell tetrahedron as the model of the universe, and then these inverted pyramids, because we have the ones that are standing up above the ground, but then we have inverted ones that are the collectors. And if you have these different things like the Bermuda Triangle and its opposite on the opposite side of the world, it almost looks like a booster, energy boosters and collectors and beamings. You know, it's kind of a strange big apparatus of collecting energy and releasing energy. You know, and I don't know what you think of that, but it just seems like a very complex global machine.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think the Earth is basically a machine.
Yeah, I mean, it really does seem that way, the way that they built all this ancient megalithic stuff. So
This is the inside of a pyramid when they're chanting.
Oh yeah,
This is what it looks like.
I forgot the frequency of that when they were doing the Om chant in the Pyramid of Giza, and this was the magnetic file, or what is it? Magnetic
magnetic filings, iron filings.
Filings. Yeah, this was the Om chant.
Yeah, with the eye of Saturn.
Yeah, you started getting the eye. It started shaping into the eye.
Okay,
if I
so
remember.
hold that thought right there in that image. A couple of days ago, I ran across the sonification of data from CERN. They've taken some of the data, the raw digital numbers that come from the particles that collide in the detectors, and the detectors generate data from those collisions. They're analyzing the energy, they're analyzing the trajectory of the particles as they spin off from the collisions. This is the data that is in the computer, and they've taken the raw data and morphed it, if you will, or translated it into musical notes, much like the notes on a sheet of paper. And then they've actually played those notes. And you can go online and you can listen to this, but it is called the sonification of CERN. It's the music, it's the frequencies. Now, a couple of conversations ago, we all touched briefly on the fact that we believe that CERN has something to do with frequencies, generating frequencies, the use of sound by the ancients and today. Here you've got a representation of that sound within the pyramids. There's been a lot of speculation that frequencies are generated within the inner chambers and by the granite structure itself of the pyramids. Frequencies are a big deal. And so when you're talking about chanting and ohms, you're talking about digital representations of frequencies that are generated by the collisions at CERN. We talk about the Hebrew and Sanskrit glass plates of ancient writings that are at CERN that are receiving energy in the form of frequencies from these collisions, and that they have some occultic, ritualistic process that's involved with having those writings, those Sanskrit and Hebrew writings, being subject to the frequencies that come from the machine. I mean, this all gets wrapped in together. But the fact that they actually came out and said, hey, here's the music of CERN, here's the sonification of the data, I found amusing but also very enlightening.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway.
Yeah, it was really interesting. I couldn't believe it when you sent it to me. I was like, oh my gosh. You know, I mean, I had no idea that they put it into sound and that you can listen to CERN as a musical instrument. But
yeah, it doesn't sound half bad either. It's kind of nice.
yeah, I mean, I knew that it was like a musical instrument. I just didn't know that we could hear it. I didn't know that they had any type of sound bites that we could listen to. So that was new to me.
Yeah, it's kind of cool.
And where did you say we could hear it again?
I'll send you the link. I just saw it a couple of days ago, but you can look up sonification of CERN or sounds or music of CERN, and it'll pop up a WAV file.
I just had a question regarding CERN. What do you think? How many? I've been looking at it, and I'm wondering how many. We talked about directed energy weapons. We talked about dealing with DNA, holograms. How many features do you think that CERN actually can do? I mean, it's kind of like the Swiss Army knife of musical weapons.
That's why it's in Switzerland, you ding dong.
Swiss Army knife.
You hit it. That's the secret of CERN. It's a Swiss Army knife.
I should have known it. The PhD. I can see the PhD written on that. The Swiss Army knife of CERN. Oh, that's funny.
It is so multifaceted. We've all grown to appreciate that, the three of us, in our discussions. But yes, you're right. It's almost like, oh, okay, blame everything on CERN. Everything that's going on in the world, blame it on that. You know.
Exactly.
I mean, again, you started the show today mentioning the tragic Germanwings aircraft crash that took place a couple of days ago. And yes, I'm guilty of blaming that on CERN to an extent. only because of its proximity to CERN, the crash
Right.
site, and some of the weird things happened with it. And so, yeah, I can laugh at myself and say, oh, I blame a lot of things on CERN. But you cannot step away from CERN and say that it does not have a multiple of uses and a multiple effects upon the planet and our direct individual lives each day. So, yeah, it's funny, but it is multi-layered.
Well, would you describe the plasma helical conduit kind of like a tractor beam concept of
Sure.
and that's the only thing about this air crash thing is the proximity, as you said, was what made it interesting. But my other point is I can't honestly believe the media releases anymore when it comes to these airplanes, because we watch so many of these airplanes. They found them, they discovered them. It's over here, it's over there, and it's kind of like, well, this is the official story right now. But you know, that yeah, I just don't believe the system, and I don't rule out the proximity, but I have no way of proving it either. But the point is, it's just the people in control aren't their words no good in my book, and you know. At least we know that CERN, we know their test target dates. We're trying to unravel several things related to it. Chris is doing a great job of just unraveling a lot of the ancient connections and this all pyramid technology with CERN. And I think we have to venture into some uncharted territory for us, and introduce other things to the Christian community that maybe that were originally meant to be in the Christian community, related to the Mazzaroth, the Zodiac, things like that, that we'll have to investigate more, and take it back from the astrology end of things that the pagan systems did, and see what we can come up with. But yeah, Chris, do you have anything you wanted to say?
Yeah, I was finding it interesting that Mithra, you know, it's in Vedic cosmology, and then in, you know, the Judean Christian and the Gnostics, they in their remains equates Mithra with Metatron.
Really? Metatron and Mithra. Wow.
And well, there's two Metatrons too. Remember that. And I think that he has like 36 wings and innumerable eyes.
The 3 6s.
Yeah, the Persians relate Mithra to 28 Izids, the spirits of the Ara Mazda, and I guess we've talked about Mazda before, and I did a blog on that on the Peacock King, but I didn't know that.
Yeah, I just wanted to add a point to what you're talking about with the ancient civilizations. As it pertains to me in the end times, dealing biblically with the book of Daniel and the 2 legs of the statue, and going to the 10 toes, the miry clay, iron and miry clay, it really does look to me that we're dealing with the revived Roman Empire. And when we're looking at that, this past week, we just looked at the festival of Hilaria as it pertained to the days that these things were going on. And for a pop culture reference that I thought was extremely strange and out of place was the announcement of Angelina Jolie that she's having her ovaries removed on the day that is associated in Hilaria with castration. And I said, that's a mighty interesting coincidence to have that story come out on the same day. My only point was that these people still follow the Sibyl Addis cult, the Mithras cult, these Roman festivals, these Roman holidays, these Roman rituals. They parallel it in the news, and it's just becoming more and more obvious every time we check these things out.
So let's take that point, and I go to Chris. September. Dates, rituals, occult symbology. What do we see that perhaps the ancients, be it Romans, Sumerians, what can we say about September that we can pin on what they believe are their occultic dates that would also, we're looking at CERN, of course, doing their activities on significant dates.
Well,
Maybe.
it's the autumn equinox, and this was the time when the Bota Ra would travel through the constellations. And they, in their old star maps, you know, they have the Dendara map. I guess when they talk about Leo rising, and Leo was killed by Hercules, which represents Orion and Osiris. We don't want to get too much into that. We're working on a show to explain all these things. It's very confusing, but that has a lot to do with September and the god Janus. It has to do with the autumn equinox and the refraction of the sun. So
you're thinking September like I am. I'm looking at it from the timetable of experiments at CERN, their own published calendar, which is on my website. And I like to overlay that with what you see as significant in the zodiac and in their practices and in their, you know, such as the Bota Ra. Because again, we have to look at both of those, the physics and the spiritual, to try to discern, if we can, what's going to happen later on this year.
yeah, it's a possibility that it's just another layer of something that they're doing, like 9/11, until another certain date. I know that there's someone that I respect their work very much, and they think that something will happen in 2016. And then there's another person who I highly respect that sent me some information on a very significant alignment in 2017. And it lines up with a movie of Hercules and the releasing of the Titans during this alignment that's happening in 2017, the same alignment. So, I mean, we can't totally be for sure. I do really think, and these people that I watch their work closely, I do think that they believe that something is going to happen significantly in September. There's going to be something very powerful is going to happen now. Financial advisors are talking about this that have watched the market for a long time. And so I think that since they're revving up the machine, I mean, the AI quantum computer already, they have gotten to where they want to be. Their computer, they've been successful in getting this completed. And so if CERN is successful in their completion with the TEVs and how powerful this thing is going to be, pretty powerful during that time. Is it that they're going to be able to get to a point to where they're going to open a portal and get closer to merging something based on a ritual that they're doing worldwide with the pyramids and the ley lines and sacrifices and all these rituals and dances and you know, things that they're doing? I don't know. It's really hard to say, but I do know that it's something that we should watch for, just like we were watching the Black Sackcloth Sun. We don't know if demons came through during that time. I mean, I'm very prayerful, so they're probably not coming around me. But you know, they could very well done something during that time, and I'm not really sure. I'm not sure.
Well, I think you made it.
Yeah, go ahead.
No.
I'm just thinking that what we're talking about here is, as we watch society and these events happen, I think we're going to see this out. You're seeing this outburst of this anger and these riots, and then this war. It's almost like the god Mars is, kicking into high gear, and the people who aren't sealed by the Holy Spirit are being preyed upon, in the sense that they have little defense against going into rage. I'm watching people in cars ramming cars in parking lots. I'm watching a lot of raging going on. And to me, this is kind of the spirit that we saw with the French Revolution, which was that kind of group spirit of rage and madness that is a bacchanalian event. But that was my comment.
Well, you're, of the three of us, you're the one that's kind of focused more on the pop culture, and I thank you for that. And the reason that I bring it up is that we know that they, for whatever reason, they have to announce what their plans are, and we see that through pop culture. And so I ask you the question, and I know you're not prepared for this, but do you see any movie releases that are coming up this year, in particular in September, that might be indicative of their plans?
Well, the May 1st, May Day, is the big one for this year as far as Age of Ultron, which is the Avengers movie where Tony Stark's, I believe his Jarvis, his computer Jarvis that he's always talking to, becomes AI and turns on him. So I believe you're seeing your adiabatic computer rolling out in this movie.
What's the name of the movie again?
This is called The Age of Ultron. This is the Marvel's next release. This is the big one for the year. If you watch the Iron Man movies, Iron Man 1, 2, 3, this would be like, this is probably this is the Avengers version, but Age of Ultron. This one is the AI becoming alive. This is going in line with the Chappie movie that just came out, which is another AI. So they're AIing us to death right now, and these AIs are bad. The other theme that I'm seeing going on is the zombie apocalypse stuff, and also the other thing, the theme I'm seeing going around is the theme of resurrection. Okay, yesterday was the day of Attis's resurrection, the resurrection of Attis. The previous movies this year, Jupiter Ascending, is, as Chris knows, she clued me into this, Jupiter is the resurrected Saturn. So there's a lot of resurrection going on, and that all leads into the raising Osiris theme of the Freemasons and the occult agenda that Tom Horn was talking about for 2016. So we're seeing a lot of resurrection themes going on right now. And I think what we're witnessing right now politically is the destruction of the United States government. In the movies White House Down, I forget what the one was called, something Olympus Has Fallen, using those terms.
Right.
Both White House or government. Hello?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I think
Okay.
Chris must have clicked on something, but here she comes. I think she's back. I think she just clicked the wrong
Yeah,
thing.
we got off. No, I didn't click anything. It just the server went out.
The server went out. All right. Well, you want to wrap up at this point? I was basically saying that I saw today that John Kerry was given, as of yesterday, while we're watching the plane crashes and everything, that he was given basically authority over the NDAA as a presidential memorandum straight off the White House website, and then he's doing a immigration thing today to where you can hire immigrants in the police forces. So I see that there's major problems going on with the government structure right now. And that will limit the amount of time we have to do research as far as dealing with CERN in September.
In September, the first movie that's coming out is called No Escape. And the second movie is called Jane Got a Gun. Kitchen Sink, 999, The Visit, Black Mass, Captive, Everest, Maze Runner, Pawn Sacrifice, Hotel Transylvania, and The Intern. Those are all the movies coming in September.
Nothing like a little Black Mass.
Good. Wow. Okay. Well, can you guys see as my picture?
Yeah, we're seeing your picture.
Yeah, your camera's off.
Oh, okay. Let me get that back on. Not that it matters. Okay, there we are. Let me go back to the plane crash for just a minute. Gravimetric distortions. This is what Clyde Lewis and I spent many hours talking about last night on the radio. And I hadn't heard of this, and that's why it was fascinating to me. But his conjecture is that possibly, the connection between CERN and this aircraft going down was due to the magnets at CERN causing a gravimetric distortion of the Alps themselves. And he cited Marcus Girk in 1995. A geophysicist, Marcus Girk, published a speculative scenario paper in which he said that there are gravimetric distortions or anomalies, gravity waves that pass through mountain ranges, in particular the Alps, right where this plane went down. Also the Himalayas, the Southeast Asia, and Andes, and Antarctica. In other words, what he's saying is there are these hairline-thin waves of gravimetric energy that pass through and distort the mountains and also distort the areas above the mountains. And perhaps this plane encountered a gravimetric wave, and that's what affected its avionics and brought it down. It's probable. He also cited Brookhaven Laboratory in New York, the RHIC, the particle accelerator, saying that there were at least 3 instances of aircraft, including possibly JFK's light aircraft, going down, JFK's son, aircraft going down that were attributed to, by physicists and by the media at the time, to the activities with the large magnets in the particle accelerator at Brookhaven. Now, again, it's all speculation. We're not accusing anyone of anything that's nefarious or illegal. But you look at the timing of events that are going on related to the timing of activities with these particle colliders and these massive magnets. And you have to say that there has to be some type of connection going on. Whether it's deliberate or accidental, who knows? Going back to the 300-foot depth of CERN under the Earth and gravimetric waves, certainly if you're down in the Earth that deep and you're producing waves of magnetic energy and you're distorting the gravity of the planet itself by doing that and causing earthquakes around the planet that has been shown to be happening with the activities at CERN, it's not beyond the realm of possibility that their depth is for the purpose of affecting the Earth, and specifically its gravity, the gravity waves that already exist within the Earth. And that may tie into using gravity as a way to help in the opening of the portal. So we're seeing spin-off effects in the environment, whether it's aircraft or it's the movement of a Hurricane Erin on the day of 9/11, moving from offshore to inshore towards New York at the time of 9/11, and the activities with the Brookhaven Laboratory and its magnets possibly affecting the course and the path of a hurricane. So anyway, that's a lot.
Now, does the Atlas Mountains tie into that too?
Let me see my list here. I have the Andes. I don't have the Atlas Mountains on the list from the article. But sure, possibly.
Yeah, I was curious. I did a study on the Atlas Mountains, with the Hercules pillars and the ancients, and how all that symbology is in certain areas, by Africa and across the ocean, and how there was like a ancient pirates. I guess they would travel through certain areas and do different trades, during in history. But I just thought it was interesting. So I was wondering about the Atlas Mountains.
Yeah. My final conclusion on this plane crash is that, as I've said before, I do think if we're going to make a correlation between CERN's activities and this plane crash, the fact that it was a single aircraft and not the multiples of other Airbus type aircraft, Airbus manufactured aircraft that were in the air at the same time, not necessarily in the same location, but why is it that only one aircraft was affected if it was affected by the magnetic activities with CERN and causing a gravimetric wave? I kind of differ a little bit away from Clyde. I mean, that's an interesting theory, and it may hold water. But because we're dealing with a single aircraft, a smooth glide path, consistent airspeed, and no deviation from course left or right, it's obviously under control. Whether it's the pilot who was allegedly left alone and locked himself in the cockpit, I don't believe that for a second. Or it was the autopilot, or, and this is where my speculation comes in, a directed energy weapon, much like a tractor beam, utilized to overpower the aircraft and bring it down as a demonstration. Possibly a blood sacrifice, possibly ritual, but to me it looks like that aircraft was under control by external forces and brought down. And no way to prove it, no way to put the label on someone and say they're guilty of a crime. I'm not doing that. I'm just looking at the physics and saying, yeah, this is how it could be done.
Yeah, the only reason I tend to agree with that is if I look at the history of testing new things in the military, where we have the old atomic photos of everybody sitting in the little bunkers with their little glasses on, watching the bunker go off. And then we got 9/11, we got a bunch of people sitting over there hopping up and down after some cube on a barge twists up a bunch of metal cars. That reminds me of the nuclear tests. So we don't know if there was other people on site to witness this also as the tractor beam effect. That's just pure speculation. But you start putting enough of this together with we are left wondering, because we have such a dishonest media and a dishonest governments that it's very hard to put together things.
Yeah, it's pure speculation, but I'll throw the question I threw out on the radio and was hoping that we'd get a pilot or someone knowledgeable on that could answer it. But why in a 2-hour flight, a short duration puddle jump, shuttle aircraft, why would a pilot leave the cockpit shortly after reaching cruising altitude and cruising speed and essentially the autopilot being engaged at that point? Why would he leave the cockpit? Why was he unable to get through the door using the emergency passcode that he had? Was it suicidal? Was it a jihadist, undercover? Who knows, whatever. But why would a pilot leave the aircraft? Or the cockpit? I don't believe the cover story for a minute, and when it's put out in the mainstream media as, the end-all reason or conjecture on their part, so soon after the black box being recovered, when their own experts said it would take them days to decipher the voice recordings and the audible tones from the alarms. I don't buy it for a second, and so that leads me to an external causation for the crash.
And I also, I agree with you. I'm waiting for our YouTube friends who are number crunchers to find all the consistencies with the numbers that puts their fingerprints on this event, just like 9/11 has number fingerprints all over it also. Somebody is probably going to find some number fingerprints on this event also. That's just me speculating, but
sure. All right, guys, take it home, Chris.
Okay, well, sorry my dog jumped in my lap. He won't let me put him down.
It's all right.
Well, you know, we don't know when the timeline is. I do feel like we are in a certain timeline because of all the things that are happening and how God is waking up so many people. There's so many people that are waking up to the world and the secret societies and all the symbolism and everything that is happening right now, and being able to see closer and closer of things that are going on. But I think that you know, God just wants people to repent and to love Him and to come to Him. And I think that the Lord is waking up people so they can see reality, the true reality, not just the world and the patterns of the world, but the true reality of the seriousness of the things that are going on around us and the trickery of all the religions and New Age religions and all the things that the occultists have made to look like angels of light. They've made everything look good to them and make them think that this is a good thing. And you know, that's what Satan does. He is an angel of light. He's in disguise. And so, you know, Jesus came and He died for us, and he shed His blood for us. He was the atonement for us in order to save us from this world. And the only people that are going to live forever and have immortality are the people who live in Christ, are the people who see the truth and not fall into this trick of you can be your own God, and the immortality of, you know, the ascension of the 7 chakras, because that's just a trick of Satan. He actually is all of these 7 angels put into one, and that's his trick. He's the trickster. And so my hope is, you know, from doing these shows is that, you know, people can realize and seek for themselves. Don't take our word for it. Find out the truth for themselves and know that Jesus is God. He was God in the flesh, and He just didn't die on the cross. He rose again after the 3rd day. No other God or fallen angel that appeared to be God rose again and had so much power that they could just ascend right up into the heaven. They didn't have to have a vehicle or a chariot. He didn't have to have a vehicle or a chariot. They do. They have to have all these things to be able to do what they want. That's why they're doing these things. Jesus doesn't have to have CERN. He doesn't have to. He doesn't have to have His people ascend to be in some type of dimension to be, you know, immortal or anything like that. No, He brings a new heaven and a new earth, and there will be no more sea in the end. And so I do believe that's connected to the abyss. And so, you know, Jesus is the way. He's the truth. He's the light of the world, and He loves everyone. Everyone in the world is unique with a different fingerprint. He makes everyone unique and beautiful. And so I just hope that people will realize how much God loves them and how much we are in need of a Savior. And I hope that people will repent and call on the name of Jesus Christ and realize that he is the only God, and not be tricked by these 7 fallen angels.
Amen. Well, Anthony, thank you for being with us today. And we want to just plug your meeting this weekend again. Just go ahead, tell us the contact information for Clyde's get together at the Hilton.
All right. If you go to groundzero.com, you'll be able to find a link to that. Also on my website, anthonypatch.com, on the homepage, there's a link to the event. And it's Saturday the 28th at the Hilton Hotel in Portland, Oregon. Be from 6 until 9. We will do a sound and video recording, but probably only the audio will be available. Tickets are $15 ahead of time, $20 at the door. That covers our cost for the room. This is a very expensive room. It's at the top of the Hilton, the Skyline room. We are not making a dime off this event. That is not the point. It's simply to get the information out to everyone that we can. So I encourage you to attend if you're able to. And I thank you, my brother and my sister in Christ. I love our conversations together, and we're going to do a lot more of these. There's a lot more that we need to explore and help get the message out to people to come to Christ. That's the bottom line. Who cares about the physics? Let's just move on with him.
Amen. Amen. The Christ is the only way, and this is the separation of the wheat and the tares. This is the great awakening. Wake up and come to Christ, and let's get out of here so that we can enjoy eternity with him.
Amen. You guys are going to be sitting at my table in heaven. We're going to have a big feast, just like Jesus said. You know, there's going to be a new song, and there's going to be a feast, and it's going to be more than what we could ever imagine.
Yeah, well, it's going to be the best potluck yet.
All righty.
All right.
Have a great one.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.